The USV horizon cut through the darkness of space, its lights gleaming against the black void. Inside, Commander Jack Frost looked out the viewport at the massive Zarkai space station growing larger by the minute. The station, called Dominion, was shaped like a giant wheel with spikes jutting outward. It made Jack think of an ancient morning star weapon, which seemed fitting for the warlike Zarkai. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" said Lieutenant Olivia Kent as she joined him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her uniform crisp and perfect. Jack nodded. "Beautiful in a scary way, like a predator." "Are you ready for this?" Olivia asked, her voice low so the others on the bridge couldn't hear. Jack straightened his shoulders. "As ready as anyone can be for humanity's first major diplomatic mission, with an alien species that could crush us if they wanted to." The Zarkai had contacted Earth 6 months ago. They were tall, muscular beings with thick gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Their technology was at least a century ahead of Earth's. They controlled dozens of star systems in their Imperium, and now they had found Earth, sitting right in the path of their planned expansion. "Just remember," Jack said to Olivia and the rest of his team as they prepared to dock, "they respect strength above all else. Don't show fear." The docking process took 20 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, 3 Zarkai soldiers waited for them. Each stood over 7 feet tall, with body armor that made them look even larger. "Welcome to Dominion Station," said the center soldier, his translator making his deep voice sound mechanical in English. "I am Officer Zervan. Follow me to your quarters." As they walked through the station's wide corridors, Jack noticed how other Zarkai stopped to stare at the humans. Some made gestures that didn't need translation. They were clearly mocking the humans' smaller size and softer features. "They don't think much of us," whispered Sam Phillips, one of the civilian diplomats. Jack kept his face neutral. "That might work to our advantage." Their quarters were spacious but cold, with high ceilings that made the humans look even smaller. After they settled in, Officer Zervan returned to escort them to the first meeting with War General Kresta, the Zarkai leader assigned to the negotiations. The meeting hall was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to reach up forever. At the far end sat War General Kresta on a raised platform. He was larger than the other Zarkai, his skin darker gray, with scars across his face that probably showed his battle experience. As the humans approached, Jack overheard 2 Zarkai guards talking, their translators active but set to low volume. "Look at how small they are," one said with a sound like grinding rocks that must have been laughter. "The general could break that leader in half with one hand." "I heard they'd never even left their own star system before developing warp technology," said the other. "Primitive creatures. Their planet has good resources, though, and the location is perfect." Jack kept walking, pretending not to hear, but he made mental notes of everything. The Zarkai clearly saw humans as weak, primitive, and possibly not worth negotiating with at all. War General Kresta didn't stand as the humans approached. He looked down at them from his high seat, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Welcome to Dominion," he said, his voice booming through the hall. "The heart of Zarkai power in this sector. We are pleased that your species has agreed to discuss your future role in the Imperium." Jack noticed the careful wording. Not an alliance or partnership, a role in the Imperium. The Zarkai already saw Earth as something to be absorbed, not respected. He stepped forward and gave the formal greeting they had been taught. "We bring greetings from Earth and look forward to productive discussions." Kresta's upper eyes narrowed. "Indeed, we will begin formal talks tomorrow. For now, you may observe our military training. It will help you understand who you are dealing with." It wasn't an invitation. It was a show of force. As they were led away, Jack caught another soldier's remark. "This will be the easiest conquest yet." Jack simply smiled. The Zarkai had no idea what humans were capable of when pushed into a corner, and he intended to show them. 2 weeks passed slowly on the Dominion station. The humans tried to be patient as talks went nowhere. Each day, War General Kresta made new demands that would give the Zarkay more control over Earth and its resources. Jack Frost spent his nights reading everything he could about Zarkay culture. During the days, he sat quietly in meetings, watching and listening as Sam Phillips and the other diplomats tried to negotiate. The Zarkay seemed to enjoy making humans beg for small concessions. "We can't keep going like this," Olivia said one night in their private quarters. The room was swept for listening devices twice daily. "They're just playing with us." Jack nodded. "They never planned real talks. They're deciding how to take Earth with the least trouble." On the 15th day, everything changed. The human team entered the meeting hall to find twice as many Zarkay guards as usual. They stood along the walls, their weapons visible. War General Kresta sat with a cold smile on his face. "Today we will discuss the placement of Zarkay military bases on your planet," he announced without any greeting. Sam Phillips stood up straight. "That wasn't on our agenda. We haven't even finished discussing trade agreements." Kresta's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "The agenda has changed. The Imperium requires strategic positions on Earth. We cannot agree to foreign military bases without proper discussion," Sam said, his voice firm despite his obvious fear. The War General made a signal. 6 elite guards entered the room. They wore special armor with symbols that Jack recognized from his reading. These were the Kresta's personal guard, the most feared warriors in the Imperium. "Perhaps this will help you understand your position better," Kresta said. Olivia stepped forward. "This is a violation of diplomatic protocol. You agreed to peaceful negotiations." The Zarkay soldiers laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. One of them spoke in their language, and the others laughed harder. "What did he say?" Jack asked quietly. The translator in his ear buzzed. "He said the female thinks paper agreements matter to warriors." More laughter filled the room as the Zarkay guards moved closer to the human delegation. They were showing off, flexing their muscles and touching their weapons. "You humans are strange creatures," Kresta said. "You are physically weak. Your technology is primitive, yet you act as if you deserve equal treatment." Jack finally spoke up. "We believe in fair negotiations between species." Kresta looked directly at Jack. "You spoke of human heroes yesterday, of courage and sacrifice. Tell me, Commander Frost, do you actually believe these childish myths?" Jack had shared stories of human history during an informal dinner the night before, tales of soldiers who saved their comrades, of people who stood against impossible odds. He had hoped to build some common ground. "They aren't myths," Jack said. "They're history." This sent the Zarkay into fits of laughter. Even Kresta joined in, his deep voice booming. "Next you will tell us about your human gods and magic," one guard said between laughs. "Or perhaps tales of single humans defeating entire armies," another added. "The little ones need such stories to feel brave," the third guard said. Jack remained silent as the mockery continued. Sam tried to bring the conversation back to the negotiations, but Kresta was enjoying the entertainment too much. "Perhaps," the War General finally said, "you should share more of these human myths tomorrow. We find them quite amusing. But for now, we are done. Consider our demand for military bases. We expect your answer tomorrow." The human delegation was dismissed like children sent from an adult table. As they walked back to their quarters, Jack's face showed no emotion. But inside, something had changed. That night, while the others discussed their limited options, Jack sat alone with his tablet. He was searching for something specific in the Zarkay cultural database they had been given access to. "I think I found our way forward," he said finally, looking up at his worried team. "But you're not going to like it." Olivia recognized the look in his eyes. "What are you planning, Jack?" "Something either very brave or very stupid," he answered. "Maybe both." Jack didn't sleep that night. His tablet glowed in the darkness as he read through ancient Zarkay military texts. The station's database had more information than he expected. Most of it was propaganda about Zarkay victories, but buried within were the old traditions that still govern their military culture. "Are you sure about this?" Olivia asked at breakfast. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept much, either after Jack had explained his plan. "No," Jack admitted. "But what other options do we have?" Sam Phillips shook his head. "This is too dangerous. If you fail, Earth will be forced to submit completely." "And if we do nothing?" Jack asked quietly. "What happens then?" No one had an answer. They all knew the Zarkai were just playing with them before taking what they wanted. "The Krolta challenge hasn't been used in over 100 years, Olivia said, reading from Jack's notes. "But it's still recognized as legally binding in their culture." Jack nodded. "Any warrior of rank can challenge another when they believe honor has been violated. If I challenge Kresta directly, he cannot refuse without losing face with his soldiers." "But these trials," Sam said, pointing at the tablet, "they're designed for Zarkai physiology and skills. You'll be at a huge disadvantage." "That's why I'm choosing the trials of valor," Jack explained. "They test more than just strength. They test courage, endurance, strategy, and leadership, things humans can excel at." The meeting hall seemed colder than usual when they arrived. Kresta sat with a bored expression as Sam began to discuss the military base demands. The war general barely listened. Jack waited for the right moment. When Kresta made a particularly insulting remark about human weakness, Jack stepped forward. "War General Kresta," he said in a clear, loud voice, "I invoke the right of Krolta challenge." The room went completely silent. The Zarkai guards looked at each other in shock. Kresta's 4 eyes widened, then narrowed as he leaned forward. "You dare invoke Krolta?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. "Do you even understand what this means, human?" Jack nodded. "I understand perfectly. As an officer of equivalent rank, I have the right to challenge when honor is at stake. I challenge you to the trials of valor." A low murmur spread through the Zarkai in the room. One of the older guards whispered something to Kresta, who nodded slowly. "The human is technically correct," Kresta admitted. "But Krolta has not been invoked in generations. It is an ancient tradition. Yet still binding," Jack said, "unless the Zarkai no longer honor their oldest traditions." This was a calculated risk. From everything Jack had read, questioning Zarkai honor was dangerous but effective. Kresta stood up, towering over Jack. "You understand the terms. If you win, your people will be granted fair negotiations as equals. If you lose, Earth submits to Zarkai rule without question." "I understand," Jack said, keeping his voice steady. "And you choose the trials of valor, not simple combat." Kresta seemed surprised. "I do." Kresta made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Very well. The trials of valor consist of 5 challenges: strength, endurance, combat, strategy, and leadership. You will fail at all of them." "We'll see," Jack replied. "The trials will begin tomorrow," Kresta announced. "I look forward to watching you break, human." As they left the hall, Jack could feel the stares of every Zarkai soldier. Some looked angry, others amused, and a few seemed curious. "Are you out of your mind?" Sam whispered once they were alone. "You just gambled Earth's future on your ability to beat a Zarkai warlord at his own games." "It was our only option," Jack said. "They never intended fair negotiations." That night, as Jack prepared himself mentally for what was coming, a message arrived on his tablet. It was from a Zarkai officer named Vexil. "Bold move, human." The message read, "Many are watching now. Kresta hasn't faced a real challenge in years. The trials begin at first light. Be ready." Jack took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. Dawn on the space station was artificial, lights slowly brightening to simulate sunrise. Jack was already awake when Olivia knocked on his door. "They're here for you," she said. Her face was tight with worry. 2 Zarkai guards led Jack to a large circular arena. Hundreds of Zarkai had gathered to watch. In the center stood War General Kresta, looking confident and amused. "The human arrives," Kresta announced to the crowd. "Today we begin the trials of valor, invoked under Krolta challenge." A Zarke official explained the rules. "The first trial is strength. You must move these stone blocks to form the imperial symbol." Jack looked at the blocks. Each was about waist-high and must have weighed hundreds of pounds. A Zarke could probably move them without much trouble, but for a human. Laughter rippled through the crowd as Jack approached the first block. He studied it carefully, then got behind it and began to push. The stone barely moved. "Perhaps we should give the human some smaller rocks," a Zarkai soldier called out, causing more laughter. Jack ignored them. He examined the block again and noticed grooves at the bottom. He changed his approach, using leverage rather than pure strength. By getting low and pushing from the right angle, he could slowly move the heavy stone. It took him nearly an hour to move all 5 blocks into position. By the end, he was sweating heavily and his muscles burned. But the imperial symbol was complete. The Zarke seemed surprised. "The human completes the first trial," the official announced without enthusiasm. "Lucky," Kresta said dismissively. "The second trial is combat." A Zarkai warrior stepped forward, smaller than most but still towering over Jack. "I am Draxol," he said. "Try not to die too quickly, human." They were given training weapons, staffs made of heavy metal. Draxol swung his with incredible speed, hitting Jack hard on the shoulder. Pain shot through his arm. The crowd cheered as Jack stumbled backward. This was what they had come to see, a human being humiliated. But Jack had studied Zarkai fighting styles all night. They relied on power and intimidation. He needed to use something different. When Draxol charged again, Jack didn't try to block the powerful swing. Instead, he ducked under it and struck at the Zarke's knee, one of the few weak points in their anatomy. Draxol grunted in surprise. He hadn't expected the human to know about Zarkai vulnerabilities. The fight continued for 20 minutes. Jack couldn't match his opponent's strength, but he was quicker and more agile. He targeted weak joints and used the Zarke's weight against him, techniques from Earth martial arts that the aliens had never seen. In the end, Jack was bruised and bleeding from several cuts, but he remained standing. Draxol, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow, made a mistake. He overextended on a powerful swing, and Jack used the moment to sweep the alien's legs. Draxol crashed to the ground with a heavy thud. The arena went silent. No one had expected the human to win. "The human completes the second trial," the official announced, sounding shocked. Jack could barely stand, but he kept his face calm. He noticed a few younger Zarkai watching him with interest rather than mockery. "The third trial is endurance," Kresta said, clearly annoyed by Jack's success. "The crucible awaits you." Jack was led to a chamber in the outer ring of the station. The temperature inside was freezing cold, and the air was thin. A Zarke official explained that he would have to survive in this environment for 6 hours with minimal life support. "Most Zarkai warriors last the full time," the official said. "I doubt you will make it past the first hour." As the door sealed shut, Jack sat down and controlled his breathing. He had trained in extreme environments on Earth, high mountains, deserts, Arctic regions. This would be worse, but the principles were the same. Conserve energy, controlled breathing, mind over matter. In the observation room, Kresta watched with narrowed eyes. "The human is surprisingly resilient," said a voice behind him. Kresta turned to see Sub-Commander Vexil. "He will break in the crucible," Kresta said confidently. Vexil wasn't so sure. "There's something about these humans we may have misjudged," he said quietly. 6 hours in the crucible left Jack exhausted. His lips were blue from cold and his fingers numb, but he had survived. The Zarkai medics seemed surprised as they helped him out of the chamber. "No human should have lasted that long," one said as he checked Jack's vital signs. Jack was given 1 day to recover before the fourth trial. He spent most of it sleeping, his body healing from the physical challenges. Olivia and Sam visited him in his quarters. "You're doing the impossible," Sam said, his voice filled with new respect. "Just doing what humans have always done," Jack replied. "Adapting." The fourth trial was held in a different arena. This one was smaller, with rows of seats surrounding a central platform where a complex holographic display glowed. "Welcome to the Meshkara," War General Kresta announced. "The trial of strategic thinking." The crowd of Zarkai soldiers laughed when Jack entered. One called out, "Does the human even understand strategy beyond throwing rocks?" Kresta silenced them with a gesture. "You will face Commander Drazun, one of our finest military minds. The simulation will test your strategic abilities in battle." Commander Drazun stepped forward. He was older than most Zarkai Jack had seen, with pale gray skin and scars covering his face. His eyes were cold and calculating. "This should be quick," Drazun said as they took their positions at opposite sides of the holographic display. The simulation began. Jack was given command of a small fleet, while Drazun controlled a force 3 times larger. The objective was simple: capture the enemy's main base or destroy their forces. "We start you with a disadvantage," Kresta explained with a smile, "to reflect reality." Jack studied the simulation carefully. It was similar to strategic games from Earth, but more complex. The Zarkai ships were powerful, but moved in predictable patterns. They relied on overwhelming force rather than surprise or deception. Jack remembered military history lessons from his training, how smaller forces had defeated larger ones throughout human history. Thermopylae, the Battle of Agincourt, guerrilla tactics used by resistance fighters. Instead of confronting Drazun's forces directly, Jack split his fleet into small groups. He used the system's asteroids for cover, setting traps and ambushes. When Drazun sent ships to hunt him down, Jack's vessels would strike quickly and then disappear. At first, the Zarkai audience laughed at what they saw as cowardice, but as the simulation continued, their laughter faded. Jack was slowly whittling down Drazun's forces without risking his own. "Fight properly," Drazun demanded, his frustration growing. "I am fighting," Jack replied calmly, "just not the way you expect." 3 hours into the simulation, Jack sprung his final trap. He had positioned his remaining ships around a gas giant, using its gravity to increase their speed. When Drazun's main fleet passed by, Jack's ships attacked from multiple angles at once, creating chaos in the Zarkai formation. A holographic display flashed as ship after ship in Drazun's fleet was destroyed. The Zarkai commander frantically tried to regroup, but it was too late. His forces were scattered, and Jack's smaller fleet methodically picked them apart. When the last of Drazun's ships fell, the simulation ended. The arena was completely silent. "Impossible," Drazun whispered, staring at the display. "How did you defeat our superior numbers?" "The human completes the fourth trial," the official announced, his voice showing clear surprise. Kresta stood up, his 4 eyes fixed on Jack. "Where did you learn such tactics?" "No Zarkai would fight in such a manner." Jack looked around at the silent crowd. "From our myths," he said. "The stories of human history you all laughed at. Every strategy I used came from battles humans have fought against overwhelming odds." Sub-Commander Vexil stepped forward. "You mean these tactics are from real human battles? Not theoretical exercises." "Real battles," Jack confirmed. "Fought by real people who found ways to overcome superior forces." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some Zarkai looked at Jack with new eyes, not with mockery, but with curiosity and even respect. "The final trial will begin tomorrow," Kresta announced, his voice hard. "The test of unity. Do not think your clever tricks will save you there, human." As Jack left the arena, he noticed several younger Zarkai watching him. One nodded slightly, a gesture of respect. Maybe, just maybe, Jack thought, they were starting to understand. Morning arrived too quickly. Jack's muscles still ached from the previous trials, but his mind was clear. The final challenge would test his leadership, perhaps the most important human quality of all. When he entered the arena, Jack found a simulated environment waiting for him. It looked like the control room of a space station. 5 Zark stood inside, wearing the uniforms of station crew. The test of unity, Kresta announced from an observation platform. You must lead this team through a crisis. These Zark have been instructed to challenge your authority at every turn. If the station survives, you pass. If not, you fail. Jack nodded. He had expected something like this. One more thing, Kresta added with a cold smile. The team includes Sub-Commander Vexil, who has shown too much interest in human ways. Consider this a test for him as well. Jack recognized Vexil among the team. The young Zarkai officer avoided his eyes, clearly uncomfortable with his position. As soon as Jack entered the simulation room, alarms began blaring. A voice announced, "Critical system failure. Reactor overload in 30 minutes. Station destruction imminent." "I am Commander Frost," Jack said calmly. "What are your roles on this station?" The Zarkai stared at him with open hostility. Finally, one spoke. "I am Engineer Grax. I handle power systems." The others slowly identified themselves. Vexil in communications, Zurek in security, Mevra in life support, and Drac in navigation. "Our first priority is to stabilize the reactor," Jack said. "Engineer Grax, what's the situation?" "Why should I take orders from a weak human?" Grax growled. "I know what to do without your help." Jack had expected this. "I'm not giving orders yet. I'm asking for information so we can form a plan together." This approach seemed to surprise the Zarkai. Grax hesitated, then described the reactor problem. It was complex, multiple systems failing at once. "It would take at least 3 people working directly on the reactor," Grax concluded. "But that area is flooding with radiation. Anyone who goes in will receive a fatal dose. So we need a remote solution," Jack said, thinking quickly. "Impossible," Zurek said. "The control systems are damaged." Jack noticed Vexil looking thoughtful. "Sub-Commander, do you have an idea?" Vexil seemed surprised to be asked. The communication system could be rewired to control the reactor remotely, but it would require someone to enter the radiation zone briefly to install a link. "How briefly?" Jack asked. 2 minutes at most, still enough for severe radiation damage. The other Zarkai began arguing among themselves. None wanted to risk radiation exposure, but they also refused to accept failure. To them, the test was becoming real. "Enough," Jack said firmly. "I'll go in and install the link." The room went silent. "You?" Mevra asked. "Why would you sacrifice yourself?" "This is just a test." "Because that's what leadership means," Jack replied simply. "I won't ask anyone to take a risk I'm not willing to take myself." He turned to Vexil. "Prepare the communications rewiring. Grax, tell me exactly what I need to do in the reactor room." Despite their instructions to be difficult, the Zarkai began working together. Jack's willingness to put himself at risk had shifted something in their attitudes. When everything was ready, Jack put on a radiation suit. "This will only provide partial protection," Zurak warned. "It will be enough," Jack said. "Start the countdown when I enter the chamber." The simulated radiation room was bathed in red light. Jack worked quickly, following Grax's instructions through the comm system. His hands moved steadily despite knowing that in a real situation, he would be receiving a lethal dose of radiation. With 30 seconds to spare, he completed the installation. "Link established," he reported. "Vexil, you're up." Back in the control room, the Zarkai worked together smoothly now. Vexil's plan worked, and the reactor stabilized with minutes to spare. When Jack returned, radiation burns, simulated by the program, covered his exposed skin. He was clearly in pain, but remained standing. "Station saved," the computer announced. "Test complete." From the observation deck, War General Kresta watched with narrowed eyes as the Zarkay team gathered around Jack, no longer hostile but respectful. "The human passes the final trial," the official announced. Kresta stood. "Very well. The challenge results will be announced tomorrow. All must attend." As the simulation ended, Vexil approached Jack. "Why did you choose to take the radiation exposure yourself? You could have ordered one of us to do it." "Because that's not who we are," Jack said simply. "Human leaders don't send others to die if they can take the risk themselves." Vexil seemed to ponder this all the way back to Jack's quarters. The great hall of the Dominion station was packed with Zarkay. Word of the humans' unlikely success in the trials had spread throughout the station. Everyone wanted to witness the final judgment. Jack stood alone in the center of the hall. His body still showed the marks of his trials. Bruises from combat, peeling skin from the radiation burns, and dark circles under his eyes from exhaustion. But he stood straight and calm. War General Kresta entered to the sound of drums. He took his place on the raised platform and looked down at Jack with all four eyes. "The Krolta challenge is complete," Kresta announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "The human, Commander Jack Frost, has, against all expectations, completed all 5 trials of valor." A murmur ran through the crowd. Jack could see surprise on many Zarkay faces. "According to our ancient traditions," Kresta continued, "both challenger and challenged may speak before the final judgment is given." Kresta spoke first. "The human has shown unexpected skill and determination," he admitted grudgingly, "using tactics that many Zarkay would consider unconventional. Nevertheless, the trials were completed according to our laws." He paused, clearly unhappy about what he had to say next. "By the ancient laws of Krolta, I am bound to grant fair negotiations to the humans as equals, not as subjects." Then it was Jack's turn to speak. The hall fell completely silent. Even the guards at the doors stood motionless, waiting to hear what the human would say. Jack looked around slowly, making eye contact with many Zarkay before he began. "When I first came here," he said, his voice clear and strong despite his exhaustion, "I heard your soldiers laughing at human myths, at our stories of heroes and courage. You thought they were just tales we tell ourselves to feel brave." He took a step forward. "But our myths aren't fantasies. They're memories. They're the collected wisdom of countless generations who faced impossible odds and found a way forward." Jack pointed to his bruises. "Every trial I faced with the strength of those who came before me. When I moved stones using leverage instead of raw strength, I was using knowledge passed down for thousands of years. When I fought using your opponent's weight against them, I was using techniques created by humans who needed to defeat stronger enemies." Several younger Zarkay were nodding now, including Sub-Commander Vexil. "In the strategy simulation, every move I made came from real battles in human history, times when smaller forces defeated larger ones through creativity and adaptation. And in the leadership test, I showed what humans have learned over centuries, that true leaders serve those they lead, not the other way around." Jack looked directly at Kresta. "You thought our myths were weakness, but they are our greatest strength. They connect us to all humans who ever lived, giving us their wisdom and courage when we need it most." The hall was so quiet that Jack could hear the soft hum of the station's systems. "Humans don't have your physical strength or your technology," Jack continued, "but we have something just as powerful, the ability to learn from our past, to adapt to new challenges, and to work together across differences. That's how we survived on Earth despite countless disasters and our own wars." Jack extended his hand toward Kresta in the human gesture of peace. "We don't want to be your enemies. We want to be your allies. Maybe we can learn from each other. Your strength and our adaptability could accomplish amazing things together." For a long moment, Kresta stared at Jack's outstretched hand. Then, slowly, he stepped down from the platform and took it in his much larger gray hand. "The human speaks wisdom," Kresta announced. "Let the new negotiations begin, as equals." As they left the hall, Sub-Commander Vexil approached Jack. Human. Jack, would you tell me more of these myths that give your people such strength? Jack smiled. Have you ever heard of 300 Spartans who stood against an empire? A small group of curious Varkai gathered to listen as Jack began to tell the story.